Hello, welcome to Get Your Mind On. I'm Lori Stohs. So as we continue our conversations about transitions, today we're going to talk about the transition of an individual performer to a manager. You know, you might have been an individual performer loving what you do and you become an expert, and some of you may decide to just continue on being an expert. But there's others of you that have had the desire to become a supervisor or a manager. First question I'd ask you is why? Is it because of that you feel that that is the route to help you get to higher levels in the organization? Is it for the money? Or is it something that you really desire to do? Now, it could be all of the above, but definitely the last option is one you have to definitely consider is you have to have a desire to do it. To become a manager is a very important role. It's a very important responsibility, as I compare it to parenting. You know, if we're a manager, it's just like taking care of our kids. Many times we don't have the book to tell us how to do it. We have to figure it out along the way. And that's most of the time what happens when you become a manager. Nobody gives you the guide. There's lots of great books out there, but your guide has probably only been the managers that you've had. And now all of you can raise your hand to say, I've had a few that haven't been my best managers, and maybe you've been very lucky to have a couple great managers in your world, which has been great examples for you. So that's the piece of it when you think about management. I want you to think about if you're transitioning and want to transition as a manager, that you take that responsibility very, very seriously. You're guiding and directing people's lives every day. And that's really, really critical. So I want you to know that when you decide, hey, I'm ready for something else, I want to make a transition to a manager, I want you to make sure it's the management piece, that you're interested in the people development. So let's proceed a little bit more into how you go about that. So, you know, congratulations, you've decided to interview for that role and you've gotten it. So guess what? Somebody believes in you. Somebody believes that you can do it. You might have the right talent for it, but we all go about it differently. So the first thing you really have to think about is, what is your style as a manager? Who are you and how do you go about that? And you know, with all my strengths teaching, many times you understand that everybody approaches management different. So first is you can learn from others, but first you have to learn your style. And I think that's the biggest piece of it, is being confident as a manager. If you've never been a manager before, you're going to have to kind of find your own in terms of your style. There's lots of courses you can take and books you can read on skills and developing management skills, but you need to know who you are. Okay, there's that piece of being honest with people and saying, here's who I am as a manager. So you're going to have to find your confidence in what that is for you. There's no right or wrong. It's just understanding who you are and how you go about it. And guess what? We have a journey of learning that you're going to have plenty of years to continue learning how to become a better manager. The one thing to guard on is not coming in and being extreme and saying, hey, I'm in charge, I'm now your manager. That would be kind of way to the one side, or the other side would become, the little bit of lack of confidence. Well, I've never been a manager before, so I'm just kind of finding my own, and I'm new, and you're kind of waffly. Well, what kind of team wants to follow that, right? So you really have to be confident, and sometimes fake it till you make it, but be confident in the things that you are. Know yourself. Know that some of you are great teachers, and you can maybe lead manage by being a great teacher. Some of you have great relationships, so you can be the one sitting with that person and getting to know them. Others of you are great executors, and you bring people along through projects. You will find your way as a manager. Now, I think it's also critical for you to think about, if you have been a peer to a group of people and you become the manager in that group of people, what does that look like? That's not always the simplest thing to think about. How do I become a manager of people that I've been a peer to? So let's talk about what that might look like. Again, I think part of it is working with your manager first to talk about that transition. Number one is what projects maybe transition off, because if you become a manager, many times today we're a working manager, meaning we manage people and we still do projects. That's just, most of the companies have moved to that model just because they're lean, and it keeps people's hands in the work. So I think that's okay, but it's understanding when you become a manager, it's that responsibility of the people. You need to set that expectation very early on about that relationship, that, hey, we've been friends for a long time, we've been partners working together, But my role as a manager is you need to set expectations clearly about what you expect of that person. Now, you can still do things with them or however that relationship looks, but I think it's being clear about your expectations of them and understanding, I expect this of you, and here's our time frames, and here's how we could work together. So I think that's really important to sit down and have those conversations as you move into that management of those peers, is first sitting down with them and saying one-on-one, who are they, getting to know them better, talking about what they do well, talking about what they struggle, even though you might know some of this already. I think it's just that conversation that's important. And then you talking about yourself and your style. Because again, we have to establish what that style is. Now, they're going to know you as a peer. Again, if you go way to the extreme and become somebody different, that's going to be a problem. But I think it's understanding what the role is, how you guide, how you direct, how you get to know them, and really how you help them maneuver through the system to be successful. So for positive charge this week, I really want you to think about, are you an individual performer having the desire to move to a manager, and why? Number 2 is think about that why and how you can transition and what it would be your style of management. And 3, if you're managing peers, what's the best way to go about that for you? The role of being a manager is really important, and that transition from an individual to a manager is sometimes a bit challenging. So take some time to really think about that before you launch into it, to number 1, make sure it's something you want to do, and 2, how you execute it makes a big difference for everyone. Thanks for joining us today, and remember to get your mind on.